Hello, this is Wmpyr here to talk about the film The Hunted. Um, yeah, that's a terrible title just because it's so generic and there are other movies with the same title. So I got to be more specific. This is the 2003 film The Hunted, starring Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro. So when people ask me, like, people that don't know much about martial arts and stuff, they ask me, what is it that you teach, or what is Filipino martial arts? I always, tell them, check out the movie The Hunted. To me, that is a quick way that they can understand. Now, that being said, this movie has plenty of problems, and they could get the totally wrong idea from this film. However, at that level, as kind of like an intro, like I think it does its job. So if you want to know what's up with Filipino martial arts, The Hunted is an easy way to understand what it is. It is not without problems. So I'll say that again. Um, However, yeah. That being said, there's just simply no other movie that I could recommend that that will do its job like this. When someone just simply asks me, what's FMA or what's Escrima, you know, what's Kali, what's Arnis, I could just say, watch The Hunted. There is no other film that I could do that with. I wish there was. What about A Grande Arte, aka Exposure? That's a fantastic movie. I really, really, really like that movie, but it's rare. It's hard to find. So for that reason alone, I have to put The Hunted above, just for that reason alone. If I had to include one other reason, the story in that movie is a lot more complex than The Hunted. The Hunted is very simple. The plot is basically Rambo First Blood. It's basically that. So it's really, really easy to understand. The Exposure, Arte Grande, uh, the story's pretty freaking complex. I would have a hard time trying to explain it to you in like one sentence. And if I had to include one other reason in that film, the fight style, they fight with knives, and that style is called Persev. In the film, they actually mention the name. It's called Persev, perforate and sever. Okay, and Persev, from my understanding, is an actual style that exists in Brazil. And I actually have done a review of the film, and I've had comments over the years. At least one comment where this guy told me, "Yeah, that style really exists. I'm from Brazil." Something to that extent. So, you know, I know it's just a comment, so take that as a grain of salt. But yeah, from my understanding, it does exist over there. But in the actual film, the choreographer is a Filipino martial arts person. Therefore, what you're seeing is FMA. And even back then, when I didn't know that, I remember watching it going, this is what I do. This is FMA. This is not FMA, but this is the same as FMA. Little did I know it was FMA. It wasn't supposed to be, but yeah. So, The Hunted, they don't mention what style it is. However, when you watch the making of The Hunted, you find out that the style used is called Sayak Kali. So it is a FMA style. Now, I don't recommend that you watch this movie and then you go, oh, Sayak Kali is the best style ever. I'm gonna go learn this style. I don't think that's a good idea. And that I think your brain is like in the wrong place. But I know beginners, and this is just the normal way of thinking for people. So all I can say is do your best to not think that way. What I do recommend is that you watch The Hunted and you go, oh, this is Filipino martial arts. That's really cool. I want to go learn Filipino martial arts. Then I think it's good. Then I think it's good. Don't think it's the best, and don't be too attached to the one style sayakali. That's my recommendation. I say look at it broader, in a more broad way, and view it as FMA, Filipino martial arts. And go try to learn. It's going to be much easier that way because looking for a very specific style is going to be hard to do. Anyways, so yeah, I recommend if you go looking for FMA, you have a much bigger chance of being able to find it, being able to learn it, and yeah, you won't be trapped in that one style, one specific type of style, So that's what I recommend. So problems with it. Well, yeah, one of the problems is there's no sticks. With FMA, sticks is a big part. So this is all knife, pretty much. We can say this is like 99% knife. And that's fine, because knife is part of FMA. Blades are. But yeah, so they don't show any sticks. And the other problem is the knife itself. The knife is not a Filipino martial art knife. So, okay, if they were to use an FMA knife, a Filipino knife, what would it have been? Well, I think historically it would have been the balisong. However, at some point, I think it was before the 80s, the balisong became widespread and it became illegal all over the world. The reputation of the balisong, or should I say the people using the balisong, was so negative and so fearful that they banned it as if it was the knife. It was really the certain people using it. And I bet a lot of that did have to do with the FMA people using the balisong. But anyway, it got banned all over the world. And after that, so to me, the Filipinos lost their trademark knife. Compare that to like the Indonesia. So in Indonesia, the Silat people, they still have their trademark knife, which is the karambit. That's still legal, and they still have it, and they're still known for it. The Filipinos, they lost their balisong, but I think their attitude was like, oh, we don't care. That's fine. We could use any knife. It doesn't have to be the balisong. To me, that is like the perfect Filipino attitude. That they are very easygoing like that. They're very flexible, adaptable. No wonder they're like some of the best guerrilla warfare fighters on the planet. So that's their easygoing attitude. It's okay. We can use any knife. But because of that, they don't have this identity anymore for like their trademark knife. Now, it's been many years since then. It's been decades since that has happened. And there's been many Filipino martial artists, some really amazing, talented FMA people that are also like knife designers. So they should have featured one of those designs in this film. And let's face it, in the film The Hunted, imagine if they fought with balisong, butterfly knives. I don't think it would have looked right. It just, visually, I don't think it would have worked. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems a little awkward to think about it now, But of all the modern day people who have been designing tactical knives, and these people that also are FMA experts, right? Knife designers that are FMA experts. They should have used one of their knives in this film. And out of all of those people, I don't think you could go further back than Professor Bram Frank. He is the like the origin. He is the ground zero. He's the father of that. So I feel like that's what they should have used in this movie. And if they had, well, I think it would have worked. I think it would have been great. I think it would have visually, it would work if they had used Professor Bram Frank's knives in this movie. And in fact, we're living in this new AI digital age. I think they'll be able to do that, where they can change the knife digitally and put in Professor Bram Frank's knives. And I think we'll see that more and more future movies where they could change stuff like that. Like, no, it should have been this actor, and they'll change it, and it'll look real. I think we're fastly getting to that level with the whole AI technology. So that's a completely different video, different story, but that would be amazing. Anyhow, so let's go to the tracker knife. Do I despise it? What do I think? Well, let me say this. Okay, first of all, the tracker knife, a lot of people think that Tom Brown Jr. is the one that designed this knife. From my understanding, he stole the design and he took credit for all of it. So that is terrible. That is terrible. Rob Rasson is the designer, from my understanding. Okay, I am convinced of this. All right. And when I watched the video, of Rob Rasson explaining all this and talking about his knife design, the tracker knife, I think the man is a genius. Rob Rasson, to me, is a genius. He designed an amazing knife, and it is a multi-tool of a knife. It's one knife that can do designed for multiple things, and specifically for bushcraft and wilderness survival, right? So it's called the WSK, Wilderness Survival Knife, right? And yeah, I think the guy was a genius, because when you're going into the woods, weight matters. So his idea was to, combine the tools together, so you only have to take one tool that can cover all these other aspects, and you can lighten your load. It just makes sense. It makes total sense. I think the man was a genius. Now, back in the day when this knife came out, I saw reviews of this knife, and I noticed that there were like lots of people that saw the movie and they're like, oh, this knife is amazing, right? And I fell into that category. But those are pretty much a lot of people that didn't know anything about the knife. They didn't understand knives, And, I was just a fanboy of the movie, so I wasn't really understanding the knife, and I just thought it looked cool. So I really didn't know anything about the knife. And when I saw reviews on YouTube of people that knew bushcraft, that people that actually go into the woods and do this stuff, their reviews of the knife were bad. Is what I noticed. Okay, a lot of those people were like, this knife is terrible, This knife is like, yeah, it's like a Swiss Army knife. So it could do multiple things, but it does multiple things, none of them well, So the overall like opinions were pretty negative by the pros, so to speak, right? Well, today I feel like that has changed. I think people now understand this knife more, and the pros I feel are saying that the people who actually go into the woods and do bushcraft stuff, a lot of people are now saying this knife is pretty damn good. So yeah, once again, I think it's a cool looking knife. So just visually, it looks cool. Okay, but more importantly, I think it does what it's designed to do. So the form fits the function. It's a functional knife. So I think it's in that sense, it makes sense and it's cool. I believe that Professor Bram Frank's knives are the same thing in the fact that it is a multi-tool, except it's not for bushcraft. It is for combat. So from a combat or a tactical point of view, Professor Bram Frank's knife is similar in idea as the Rob Bresson knife, which is a multi-tool for bushcraft survival type stuff. You want to cover a bunch of different techniques. Well, Professor Bram Frank's knife, to me, does that. But for combat purposes, for self-defense purposes, So so both of them, I think, both designers they're really geniuses in my opinion, and yeah, so I see that, and I like both knife designs. Obviously I'm a FMA guy, so I'm going to be more um, geared towards Professor Bram Frank's knives, just because that's what I do. I'm not a bushcraft guy, you know. Um, yeah, I'm not even a white belt in bushcraft. Okay, I don't have a belt, but yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think that's too bad that design was stolen and whatnot, and has that kind of controversy on there. But yeah, so yeah, the hunted overall, like despite its problems, I feel like it works. Not only does it work, it since I like the first Rambo movie so much, I like that knife. I like the movie. Um, if Because I like First Blood so much, The Hunted to me is, how could I not like it? Because it's so similar in many ways. To me, the overall story is very similar, except like what you didn't get to see in Rambo 1, but you kind of wanted to see, they do it in The Hunted. So there's three key things that I would say that The Hunted does that First Blood you didn't get to see. And yeah, so number one, the main one is Colonel Troutman versus Rambo. You don't get to see that. And Colonel Troutman, he says, if necessary, he basically says, if necessary, I will put him down. Like so that we're leading up to the battle between the two. I'm glad it doesn't happen because, at the end you see that Rambo is, it's a very um, sad situation he's in, you know. So at least it ends well. But there's got to be a part of you that says, what if they fought? And obviously, if they went head to head, Rambo would come out on top. I mean, that's like the boxing coach versus, you know, the pro boxing champion. Of course, if they went head to head, but I feel like Colonel Troutman knows that he wouldn't do that kind of battle. So then what is this Green Beret, the teacher? What is he, the instructor? What is he going to do? Anyway, we get to see that battle in The Hunted, the teacher versus the student, LT versus Aaron Hallam. We get to see it. So that's number one. And it is tragic. Yes, it's a very tragic story, but they do show it. It is the freaking main event, And then number two, when I saw Rambo 1, you have to fall in love with that knife, the Rambo knife, the survival knife. You go, that is amazing. They show it off and it's like, you got to, right? Well, there's a part of me that felt I wanted to see him use that knife more. Of course, the M60 at the end steals the show. 100%. Not realistic, but that's okay. He holds it with one arm and he's just blasting away. It is very, very satisfying. So I'm not knocking it. I know it's not realistic, but I'm not knocking it. I get it. Okay. It's very, very gratifying. But there's a part of me that said, I want to see more knife. Well, The Hunted does that. There's more knife. Way more knife than First Blood. Okay. And then number 3. I'm trying to think. What was number 3? What was my third point? That there was something. Oh man, I can't believe I forgot it. I'm sorry. There's something that they did in this film that I. Oh, yeah. In First Blood, we never got to see Rambo in combat back in his Vietnam days. We do get a quick flashback of him getting tortured, but we don't get to see him fight. And and it's like the closest thing we have to that is, well, watch Rambo 2. He goes back to Vietnam and you see him fight, right? That's the closest thing we have, but we still don't have what he actually did back in Vietnam. We don't have that, so that was not done. Whereas to here in this film, it pretty much starts off with Benicio del Toro's character, Aaron Hallam, over there in, I don't know, was it Kosovo? He's over there in Eastern Europe on the mission, on the battlefield. You get to see it. Active duty. You see him on the field do what he's been doing and what causes him to what they said, snap. You actually see that. So that's the third and final thing that what you didn't get to see in Rambo, you do get to see in this film. So I'm not saying that makes this film better, no, but it's nice to have that in a sense, So yeah, and one more thing, right? One more thing. In the film First Blood, Rambo 1, the whatchamacallit, the police, they treated him badly, right? Or it was really one guy that treated him terribly, right? And Rambo snaps, right? In this one, we can say that, remember the 2 hunters that were sent. I mean, the 2 hunters that Aaron Hallam encounters in the woods. And he says, no, they weren't just ordinary hunters. They were sent to assassinate me, right? That is a key area right there. Was that true? Was that not? It could go either way. And if it was, that changes the story. If it wasn't, I think that's what most people saw in the movie theater. That's what they saw, this story, and they saw this man who's a special forces, who's been through like terrible. Is he even, would he be called special forces? He's or do they call it black ops? I'm not even sure. But anyway, Aaron Hallam's character, right, is a tragic character. And they view it as he snapped, and who could blame him for snapping, and blah 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 blah, right? But If the other one is true, they sent snipers against this man, then that is a scarier, more intense story. But anyway, I just want to leave it there at that. I think that I 100% believe the director did that on purpose. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.